Welcome to the next lesson in our free race training series. In today's lesson, we're going to look at how to stay out of trouble on the race course and ensure that you finish each race ahead of the fleet. But before we do that, let's recap the last lesson. On Friday, we looked at the definitions used in the racing rules of sailing, and we did this to try and demystify the jargon that sailors use when talking about the racing rules. On to today's lesson. Today we're going to go through the race course from pre-start race checks all the way through the start line, the top mark, the wing mark, back down to the leeward mark, and through the course to the finish. And I'm going to identify a few areas where I feel you potentially may make some mistakes. Let's start with the pre-race checks. Failing to check that your boat is set up correctly before the race. For instance, it's really embarrassing to hoist a spinnaker and discover it's sheeted inside the forestay, or to start filling with water because you forgot to check that your inspection hatch and your bung is tightly closed. Starting late. Starting the race just a few seconds late, so you're sailing with boats immediately to windward, leeward, or ahead of you, all of which are creating dirty, turbulent wind. The situation could be even worse if you started at the wrong end of the line. Being pushed over the line. Getting pushed over the line by boats to leeward or by the tide before the start, so that you need to come back across the line without obstructing other boats. Tangling with the committee boat. How often haven't I seen this happen? Hitting the committee boat or getting trapped by its anchor line is really embarrassing. So let's try not let that happen. Trying to live in dirty air. Once you've left the start line, failing to tack as soon as possible to clear your wind. Remember that it is almost impossible to sail effectively in dirty air. You go slower than the boats around you, and you also can't point as high. Heading wind shifts. Failing to react to a heading wind shift, which forces you to bear away and point further from the windward mark. Then failing to react when the wind shifts again. How you react to wind shifts will to a large extent depend on the boat that you're sailing. If the boat tacks quickly, you can spin around on every advantageous shift. If the boat tacks slowly, but can sail very fast to windward, as with a skiff, you may lose out by tacking unless there's a major wind shift. Overstanding the ley line. Overstanding the ley line so that you have to bear away and sail down to the windward mark, where you must give way to boats approaching on the leeward side. This problem is often caused by not allowing for tide. Pinching to round the mark. Tacking too early for the mark, and then trying to pinch in order to squeeze around. This normally results in that you will be getting rolled by a stream of boats to the windward side. The only way out of this mess is to wait for a gap to windward and tack back onto port. The problem could be caused by tide, but you may also be caused by tacking too early in light winds, when it's impossible to power up to the mark. This becomes a major problem when a stream of boats are creating a large area of dirty wind. If it looks crowded, always tack late. Failing to give mark room. Failing to give way around the mark when the same tack boat on the inside establishes an overlap before it was 3 boat lengths from the mark, you have to take a penalty turn without obstructing other boats. You would also have to take a penalty if you try to barge around the inside at the last moment. Approaching a port hand mark, that's one where you need to leave the mark to port, on port tack is very risky when boats are approaching on starboard tack. If you obstruct a starboard tack boat while tacking to go round the mark, a penalty will be required. Colliding with or obstructing a competitor who is sailing upwind on either tack as you start sailing downwind on port tack. This can easily happen in the excitement of bearing away, changing sail controls, and accelerating off wind, particularly if the helm's view is obstructed by the spinnaker. Once again, you'll have to take a penalty. Sailing too far off to the windward side on a single tack reaching leg to the wing mark. Apart from sailing further than boats on the direct rum line, you have to bear away and consequently slow down on the final approach to the mark. You then arrive on the outside and have to give way to boats approaching on the rum line or shooting up at high speed from leeward. Bearing down on a leeward boat and obstructing its course. Once again, you will have to take a penalty. Pushing the boat too hard and taking risks in stronger winds. A lot of time can be lost getting back into the race after a capsize. Turning around the leeward mark with the spinnaker still half hoisted and the centerboard or daggerboard only half down. Apart from looking really silly, your boat will be blown sideways instead of powering upwind. Failing to go in wide and come out tight at the leeward mark, so any boats on the inside will start giving you dirty air. Forgetting to cover boats coming up behind on the last windward leg, so they find a part of the course with better wind and slip ahead before the finish. Crossing the windward instead of the leeward end of the finish line. Forgetting to sign off or post a tally to confirm that you finished the race and are safely home. That brings us to the end of today's lesson. And what I'd like you to do is to leave any questions and comments that you have on our private Facebook group, and I'll be sure to answer them there. Let's have a look at the free training that you've received. The first lesson was all about how to win the start and cross the start line on time and at speed with nothing to obstruct your wind. The second lesson was on how to use the racing rules of sailing tactically to get an advantage over other boats in the fleet. We then added in an extra lesson, which was the third lesson, and that was about demystifying the jargon used in the racing rules of sailing. And then today's lesson, the fourth lesson, was how to stay out of trouble on the racecourse and to ensure that you finish each race ahead of the fleet. I hope that you received a huge amount of value from these 4 free lessons and that they will really help you going forward in your racing endeavors. I put together a comprehensive race training course, and this is aimed at the club sailor who either wants to start racing or wants to improve their position in the fleet. It's important to note that the course is not class specific. I found that most club sailors have taught themselves to sail and subsequently to race. There are a few simple tweaks to technique and a migration of knowledge to skills that will dramatically improve your racing results. So here's what you'll get on the course. Lifetime access to about 8 hours worth of online tuition, skill-specific drills, self-assessment checklist, and a priority sail racing support via an app. The normal cost of this comprehensive race training course is $249, and that's without the skill-specific drills, the self-assessment checklist, and the sail racing support channel. To further put this in perspective, to hire a race coach would cost you $80 per hour, minimum 5 hours. I've been training for many years and I've had numerous comments of encouragement and thanks Here are just a few of them for you to have a look at. For a limited period of 5 days, I'm offering a special on my race training course at just $99. This is really, really good value. So just to recap, for a limited time only, here's what you're going to get. It's 8 hours worth of online tuition, skill-specific drills, self-assessment checklists, and a priority cell racing support via an app, all for $99, and that's lifetime access. The clock starts ticking on Wednesday at 12 noon UTC. I'll be sending out a link where you'll be able to purchase the training via email on Wednesday, and I'll also be adding that link to our Facebook group. You don't want to miss out on this special offer, so make sure you watch out for the mail on Wednesday. Thanks very much. Have a good day. Cheers.